Is there a point spread big enough? Well, the odds makers continue to try to push the limit, and it's at 14 and a half against a pretty good Wisconsin team. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking Buckeyes as we do each and every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time with the very best writers that we can find. Certainly when we talk Tony Gerdeman from the Ozone and Kevin Noon from Rivals Buckeye Grove. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight? Better than my microphone. How are we doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Doing well.
Excellent. 52-3, 49 points, 28-point spread. The Buckeyes are on quite a run in even surpassing the expectations of Vegas. It just continues week to week, Tony.
It's impressive. And every week you look at the schedule and you're like, well, this will be a good test. You know, Northwestern being one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. We'll see how they do. And they score 52 points. And again, they have a huge second quarter. Same thing with the Michigan State game. And yeah, at some point, these stop becoming the next test, and they just continue to be further proof that this is a pretty good Ohio State team. And, there's little reason to think that the Wisconsin game won't be the same. It's Ohio State, who is extremely talented and playing well and executing and has depth and has excellent coaching against, everybody else. And at this point, you could probably take Ohio State against anybody in the nation and feel pretty good that you're not going to be outclassed on the field or on the sidelines.
So unless we need to take a slice of the Northwestern game, Kevin, we can completely discard it. But if you guys think there's something valuable to review, we can certainly set our sights on Wisconsin. Was there anything from Northwestern that tells us anything more about this football team that we didn't already know, but just confirm the talent at every level on both sides of the ball?
I just wanted to kind of double back to something that Tony had said, too, that you get these – I know, I'm shocked as well, that – You sit there and you have these tests and then you pass them by too big of a margin, and then everybody's like, well, it really wasn't a test because that team was no good. So, this Wisconsin game's supposed to be a test, but look out, Buckeyes. If you somehow win it by 28 or more, everybody's just going to talk about, well, we already saw when Wisconsin lost Illinois and struggled with Northwestern, a team that Ohio State just eviscerated, that, it really wasn't that much of a test to begin with. And I mean, that's just kind of been wash, rinse, repeat all season long. They get this test, they just lay waste to this team, and then lo and behold, nobody really, that wasn't a test.
Yeah, they're making their opponents look bad and therefore making themselves not look as good somehow by doing so.
I made a statement a couple minutes ago mentioning the best writers in the industry, and that's been amped up about 10 times when Steve Hellwagon gets on the line. Steve, we appreciate you dropping by. That's right. Good to see you.
Great to be here. Great to be in such great company. And after all these weeks of one blowout win after another, we're going to have real live smash 'em up football at Ohio Stadium this Saturday at 12 noon Eastern time. Can anybody wait?
We will have smash 'em up football. Wisconsin guarantees that. Will it be competitive? Truly, truly competitive for close to 60 minutes.
I think so. I mean, I don't know. Wisconsin, their whole season kind of hangs in the balance because Minnesota remains undefeated in the Big Ten and overall. And if they lose this game and Minnesota beats Maryland, they'll be down with 4 games to play with a 2-game deficit. And certainly when you think about it,
You're with us, Steve.
We got you.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, my speaker was going nuts. But be down to a 2-game deficit with 4 to play, and even if they beat them head-to-head, they're still down a game and would need somebody else to beat Minnesota, which, they play Penn State, so that could happen there. But they have to have a renewed sense of urgency, I feel, for this game. Wisconsin does. They were embarrassed, in my opinion, to lose to an Illinois team that's been down for the better part of a decade. And the way that they did, they had, I believe it was a 6-point lead early in the fourth quarter, 1st and goal. The ball was at the 5, and they don't push it in. And that's their MO, is they bully you, they knock you around, they knock that ball into the end zone, and now it's 12, and they can decide if they want to go for 2 or if they want to just kick the extra point. And then you turn it over 2 more times after that, you've opened the door for Wisconsin or for Illinois to steal the game, and that's precisely what happened. And so Wisconsin's got to be kind of questioning, what's our MO, what's our make here going into this.
I thought it was interesting talking to the players today after practice, and they reflected on their own losses the last couple of years and how much more focused they were after that, going into practice that week and into the next game. So they realize what Wisconsin will be doing, and they're expecting Wisconsin's best efforts. And I asked KJ Hill, did you have the coaches talk to you about this, that you're going to get the best version of Wisconsin? And he's like, no, they don't need to, because after we lost to Iowa, after you lose to Purdue, you go back and you tighten up all the loose strings. You fix and you do everything. You try to do everything the right way. What you weren't doing well enough, you fix that. And so they are all expecting just this, maybe the version of Wisconsin that played against Michigan, or the absolute best version of Wisconsin that is possible this weekend, because they also know a win on Saturday erases that loss. They're back into the college football playoff picture, and they control their own destiny once again. And so they realize, this isn't going to be some wounded. I mean, it is a wounded team, and that's what makes them dangerous. It's not going to be a weakened team.
Yeah, no question about that. I heard it commented this week, and I will not note the particular commenter because I like to keep my job. But you can guess the network, where it was actually stated that this loss doesn't hurt Wisconsin. Now, come on, this loss doesn't hurt Wisconsin. First of all, they lost to Illinois. They lost to one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the Big Ten. But more than anything, just look at the metrics and the logistics of the schedule and how it plays out. Wisconsin was looking at a situation in which they were going to be favored in the rest of their games, except Ohio State. They were going to isolate most of the rest of their games to the Big Ten Western Division, where they look like the complete, to take Kevin's term, I believe, bullies, that they were just going to own the Big Ten West. And they were looking at, if we split with Ohio State, especially if we lose in Columbus, then come back and win the rematch in the Big Ten championship game, that's our ticket. That's going to show us enough to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee that we're worthy. Now they got to sweep, whether it's Ohio State, or Ohio State, Penn State. They've got to sweep on through, unless there's just complete chaos that's unforeseen. Yes, they have boxed themselves into a corner with this loss.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they have very little margin for error in terms of the big picture. I mean, the path to the Big Ten West, I mean, is not as difficult, but I don't know if Wisconsin, who's been to the Big Ten championship game plenty of times, they've won a couple of them. That's not enough. This was supposed to be a special season, but everybody has looked and, kind of writes off Wisconsin. Well, they're going to stumble along the way. And, they stumbled in a major way. And it wasn't like, they really kind of just gave it up, as Steve had mentioned, where they weren't able to push it in with about 6 minutes to go. A couple of bad turnovers. I mean, one of the biggest things that everybody was saying about Jack Cohn was, well, he just doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and then he throws that bad interception that allows Illinois to drive a little bit and be able to kick the game-winning field goal. But yeah, they're certainly not in a great position right now, and I guess I'm never one to really buy so much into, well, we're an angry team because we lost last week. If you need that to really amp yourself up, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I think that they're a flawed team. They're a damaged team. We kind of know, some issues that they may have. Will they replicate this week? I mean, only time will tell. But I mean, I think I've been saying to anybody who would listen for the last couple of weeks that I feel that Wisconsin's very one-dimensional on offense, and I don't think that Jack Cohn can sit there and win them a game if you can take away the run game. And I think Ohio State's going to do a really good job of bottling up Jonathan Taylor. And it's going to be on Jack Cohn to be able to try and do that in potentially rainy conditions. And I don't think they got it.
Kevin, be honest. You pumped your fist when Jack Cohn threw that interception against Illinois, correct?
I was standing at baggage claim at Port Columbus trying to watch the game on my phone. So I was trying like crazy to get to my car so I could put it on a satellite radio and hear the end of it. And for whatever reason, I never made it. But I kind of laughed. But I was talking to a couple of other Ohio State fans who were on my flight back from Chicago, and they admitted they had mixed feelings because they were happy about seeing Wisconsin losing, but they also didn't want to see this top 6 matchup fall apart the way that it did.
So to play off something, Kevin, and I'll let you guys, Steve and Tony, cut loose right after I make this comment. Something that I ran the numbers on just in my head a few days ago was that I was looking at a Michigan State-Wisconsin game from 2 weeks ago, and obviously the Badgers were way too much for the Spartans, but looking at the best programs in the Big Ten over the past decade, and then I narrowed it down to Urban Meyer's entry at Ohio State. The Buckeyes have lost, as you guys well know, 9 games since Urban Meyer took over in 2012. Wisconsin has the second best record in the Big Ten during that time at 25 losses. That's the gap. Ohio State's at 9 losses. Wisconsin's at 25. Michigan State, and Penn State are between 30 and 33 losses during that 7+ year span. Of course, Wisconsin has been the team, along with Michigan State, that's been a thorn in the side. Although, if you go back to 2010, of course, and Steve could run you could all run through the game. The game in Madison, the number 1 team, Terrell Pryor, that lost, got ambushed in Madison 31-18. But since then, you've got the Braxton Miller to Devin Smith bomb, Hail Mary that won it in Columbus in 2011. Of course, the really cold overtime game, Ryan Shazier met Monte Ball at the goal line, 21-14. You've got the Jared Abbrederis had a nice game, but Buckeyes survived like 31-24 in Columbus in 2013. You've got, of course, the annihilation in 2014 in the Big Ten championship game, the 2016 game overtime game in Wisconsin, then, of course, another Big Ten championship game. What I was getting to when Kevin was talking about bottling up Wisconsin and Jonathan Taylor is it's basically been the same Wisconsin offense and approach to football during this entire time, and that's been the key for the Buckeyes. Even the likes of Melvin Gordon running for 2,300 yards didn't do anything against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Jonathan Taylor, he had a monster year his freshman year. He had 41 yards rushing against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship 2 years ago. You would think that's the formula. That's what we're going to do. We might as well just do it again. Let Jack Cohn try to beat us.
We were talking to the linebackers tonight, and that was pretty much Pete Werner's exact words were, I can't give you his exact words because I don't remember them exactly. But the gist was, if you stop the running back, you win. If you stop Wisconsin's running back, they will lose. And so that was just as you said, Mark, and they've done that for years and years and years. And they come in with these guys rushing for 2,000 yards, but when they meet up against Ohio State for whatever reason, even when Ohio State didn't have a great defense in 2017, they still shut Jonathan Taylor down. So whatever they do a really good job for the game planning against Wisconsin. But it also Wisconsin makes themselves easier to game plan because they only do so much and only stress you so much with the passing game. But what they do then off of that running game is the play action, and both Pete Werner and Malik Harrison, starting linebackers for Ohio State, said that this will be the best play action team they faced this year. And Ohio State, to contend with that, has maybe the three best cornerbacks in the Big Ten. So this seems like another game where they are set up to defend this Wisconsin running game pretty well.
I want to jump in real quick here. I actually looked up these numbers. In the last 7 games that they've played them, they've held in 4 years, they've held Wisconsin's premier rusher to less than 100 yards. Last year, Jonathan Taylor, 15 carries, 41. In 2014, Melvin Gordon, I can't read my own handwriting, 76 yards on 20-some carries. In 2013, Melvin Gordon, 74 yards on 15 carries. And going back to 2011, Monte Ball, 17 carries for 85 carries. And Wisconsin's main running back has not scored a touchdown on Ohio State on the ground since Monte Ball did in 2012 on 39 carries for $191 and 1 score. So they've done a really good job through the years of taking out the main running back of the Badgers through the 2010 game.
I will say this: I think that Cohn gives Wisconsin a little bit more than what the average Wisconsin quarterback has had over the years, who was just more of a game manager. I saw Cone make a couple of very good throws in the film study that I did. I watched Michigan State. Michigan in particular, he threw the ball pretty well that day when they womped up on Michigan and Illinois. Obviously, Illinois, they were trying to run the clock out with 2 minutes to go. He threw an ill-advised interception there that opened the door for Illinois to win the game on the field goal at the end. But up until then, he had been very, very good as their quarterback, and yet, what we have here are a Wisconsin defense that's ranked number 1 in the country in terms of yards and scoring. Plus, it's rare that you see a team that's number 1 in rushing yards allowed and passing yards allowed. 4 shutouts in the first 7 games. But on the flip side, what no one tells you, flip over the baseball card, they've only played 1 offense in the top 75, and I think that was Central Michigan, who didn't have the personnel necessarily to match up with them. But everybody else they've played is between 76 and 130 in total offense, the other 7 opponents. By contrast, Ohio State's defense has played 3 teams in the top 75, 4 teams outside the top 75. It may not seem like much of a differentiation. I don't know if one's more legit than the other, but I'm interested to see how legit Wisconsin truly is, because Michigan State was supposed to be legit and was legit. 16 plays, 16 yards in the first quarter for Ohio State before they exploded for almost 300 yards total offense in that second quarter. They are the kings of the second quarter. It takes them a full 15 minutes in these games to figure out what the opponent's doing, what they didn't show us on tape, what they're showing us today, and what we need to do to overcome what they're showing us today. And then they do it in spades in that second quarter, week after week after week. I mean, it was only 7-3 at the end of the first quarter last week against Northwestern, and then it was 31-3 over and out at halftime against Northwestern. It was 27-10 against Michigan State at halftime. So Ohio State has a way, and every bit as bad against Nebraska as well. Ohio State has a way to figure out what the opponent's doing, diagnose it, and come up with the 3 or 4 things they need to do to combat it. And their defense just seems to get better and better and better as the weeks go on, as the games go on. And so I'm excited to see what Ohio State's offense can come up with to combat this clearly the absolute best defense in college football, at least statistically, is Wisconsin.
Right, but I have the numbers in front of me too. Steve had mentioned about offense. I mean, the offenses that Wisconsin has faced, and I have it broken down by rushing offense, passing offense, and pass efficiency offense. Because if you look at Ohio State's pass offense, they're 66th in the nation, averaging just shy of 240 yards a game. But if you look at their pass efficiency offense, they're 4th in the nation at 192.25. Basically meaning you have a lot of games where Justin Fields throws for 195 to 215 yards, but still has 4 scores. Central Michigan.
And no interceptions.
Right. And Central Michigan was 45th in the nation in rushing offense at $187. Nobody else, there's one team in the 50s and everybody else is in the 70s and 80s. Passing offense, Central Michigan, again, 61st, averaging 241 yards. You have a couple more teams in the 60s than everybody else is in the hundreds. And then pass efficiency, which I really am more apt to look at. Kent State is your number, is the highest rated team that they faced. Kent State at what, 149.84, 37th, and they faced 82, 85, 87, 90, and 105 this season. Ohio State is 4th in that category. So I think they're going to run into a little bit of an issue there. I'm not taking anything away of saying, well, the Wisconsin defense obviously is no good because they haven't played anybody. I'm just saying, let's not crown them yet. They haven't played anybody.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really thinks Wisconsin is the best defense in the nation. They say they are, but I don't think anybody's going to take them over Ohio State or Alabama, or even the way Alabama's defense is playing right now. Nobody's going to take that roster and take Wisconsin's roster over that one. So it's more about the entire puzzle as opposed to the individual pieces, because when you look at the recruiting rankings, they're not there for Wisconsin. And so you wonder, like, the talent isn't there, but they all meld well together, provided they're playing. I shouldn't say provided they're playing Kent State, but provided they're not playing maybe one of the top, say, 10 offenses in the nation. And that's what they're going to see on Saturday. Whether the conditions will allow Ohio State's offense to play like that, we'll see. But this is certainly the most different animal that the Wisconsin Badgers are going to see this season. Even just starting with Justin Fields, they haven't played anybody like him, and it goes on down the line from him. Be it the receivers, the running back, the tight ends, the offensive line. Every level on Ohio State's offense is something new for Wisconsin and something that they have yet to see.
At the core, has this matchup really changed since Barry Alvarez built this Wisconsin program in the early 90s and made it what it is? They've got a workman-like quarterback who they've had a few reach the NFL but hold a clipboard. They've got a great running back, or stable of them. They've got a tremendous offensive line that's the best run-blocking line, or one of the top 3 to 5 in the nation, and very capable in pass blocking. They've got a tight end who will do damage. They've got wide receivers. I know they got Quintez Cephas this year, but typically ones that don't scare you. And then they've got a front 7 that's really good and a back 4 that's not so good, but they're decent players. But they've pretty much been the same program to various degrees, against always facing an Ohio State team that is going to run by them if given the chance, that is athletically superior. The question is always, is Wisconsin going to be technically so sound that they can play their A game, and Ohio State's going to slip back, and it's going to be a very competitive game? Because otherwise, Ohio State's too quick, too fast, too athletic for them.
Well, Mark, real quick, just going back to my college days, go back to like 1997, and the concern back then against Wisconsin was the quarterback was Darrell Bevel, who didn't have a huge arm, but was good with the play action, was a smart quarterback, didn't put you in too much trouble. I think maybe the running back was, I don't know, Anthony Davis, but another outstanding back, the running game, and they did everything well. Nothing really blew you away. The defense was fine, and you knew you had to play a good game just to out talent them and out scheme them and out execute them. But it was the same. It's every Wisconsin program, or every year, is pretty much the same. It's plug and play. There's the quarterback who doesn't blow you away, but as long as he doesn't hurt you, you'll be okay. Then there's these running backs that they get from who knows where. That how did the rest of the nation miss on Jonathan Taylor, and how did the rest of the nation miss on even PJ Hill, guys like that who come in as freshmen or redshirt freshmen and rush for 1,500 yards. And that's why Urban Meyer would talk about watching what Wisconsin does in recruiting, because they eye talent so well. And they stole a running back commit from them a few years back in Antonio Williams, who ended up transferring back home to North Carolina. But Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez set that foundation, and as long as they don't let Gary Anderson, he didn't screw it up while he was here, and they've been able to just continue doing that, and it's a testament to him, and then Paul Christ for keeping it going. And you're right, it's almost every season now. They've got this 3-4 defense that they've had for a few years. They always have some pass rushing outside linebacker that was probably played 8-man football in South Dakota, and now is an All-American and going to be an NFL player. And there's probably more Watts on the way as well.
And the consistency since, I think, 1993 was the team that went to the Rose Bowl that tied Ohio State, as, again, everyone on the panel here would remember the 14-14 game in Madison. But that was the emergence of Wisconsin football under Barry Alvarez. But, man, I bet if we ran a metric that would show wins, for Wisconsin versus the average program in the nation, it's like 9, 10, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10, 9, 8. For 25 years, this has been the same program. It's been a top 15 program, but they can't get any better than that. They can't reach the elite, but they don't fall. This is about what they are.
Their best shot was 2 years ago. They were 12-0, played Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. I believe they were number 3 or 4 in the rankings. All they had to do was win the game, and they're in the playoff. And I don't think anybody rationally looking at it thought they would win the game. They really hadn't played anybody, played their usual non-conference of mishmash, and probably even in the crossovers, there wasn't much to write home about. Probably a bad Michigan team they beat, whatever it was. And
8-5
yeah,
Michigan team.
yeah, that was the year Ohio State went up to Michigan and won like 31-20 or something, I believe. So, you know, did they miss their window? Maybe they did. I don't know. But again, you make a very good point. And I asked Chris last year when everybody was on them in the preseason, like number 4, number 5, number 3, even. I mean, I said, is the idea that Wisconsin can't win a national championship completely out the window? And he's like, as much as we are a lunch pail, go to work every day, 5 offensive linemen every year to the NFL, I'm exaggerating, program, yeah, we need to embrace that talk because we want to take that next step. We want to be considered in the upper echelon of college football. And you're right. Yeah, you're right. They haven't made it. And, you know, it's things like 59-0 that tear apart at the fabric of what that program is all about. One dimensional. You can have a great defense. You can have a great running game. But if you can't diversify and do everything equally well, you're not going to win. We see Oklahoma, great offense. And last year wasn't maybe the year. They actually played their semifinal opponent pretty tough. But in most years, they get smoked in the semifinals because they're only a one-dimensional team. They can play offense, but they can't play defense. In this instance, I think Cone is a little better than the average Hornibrook, Polzine, insert name of nameless, faceless Wisconsin quarterback over the years.
Harmless.
Yeah.
Brooks Bollinger.
Yeah.
Georgie.
We know all the names by heart.
Alan Everidge.
1,500-yard passers. It just – I think he's a little better than some of the other ones that have come before him. And I just feel like you got to be able to do something more. And the other thing is, I don't think a lot of people are sold on their pass defense because they do sack the quarterback. That is evident. They're among the tops in the nation in sacking the quarterbacks. But I need to go back and rewatch the end of the Illinois game closely because what I was being told by people who watch it closely was, and I was on the same flight as Kevin, kind of coming home when that game was winding down, is their DBs are grabbing Illinois receivers and getting flags as opposed to clean coverage. And if that's the case, Ohio State's going to smoke them because, you can grab KJ Hill, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave a few times, Benjamin Victor a few times, but they're going to catch the deep ball over you a couple times too if that's all you got. So I'm interested to see it. Plus Fields, okay, you're going to sack the quarterback standing in the middle of the pocket. There went Fields. He's 20 yards outside the pocket. Good luck with all that. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned for Wisconsin and what if they don't bring a higher level play than what they showed against Illinois, what they showed against Northwestern, they're going to get smoked.
Before somebody else jumps in, just real quick, I want to draw attention to what Liza Purdue put on the screen because you talk about some hardcore special teams analysis here from Liza. Wisconsin's punter, dead last in the conference at 34 yards per punt. Field goal kicker, 5 of 9, and shaky after 35 yards. I think we block a kick or two.
And Ohio State has been close to blocking. Jamison Williams, freshman receiver, came close a couple of times to blocking a punt last week. Chase Young has had field goals go right between his arms. And now their designated field goal blocker, DeJuan Jones, big freshman, 6'8", 6'9" offensive lineman, nicknamed Big Greasy, who has blocked a field goal, I believe, this season. And they're not going to redshirt him now. So you put him on that field goal block line with Chase Young, and now you've got something. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see something like that happen. And at Ohio State, despite having all of this offensive talent, the plan to win, as Urban Meyer instilled and as Ryan Day continues to employ, is when you get that ball, be it from a punt or a kickoff, you want to get 2 first downs to put the ball at midfield so that you can then punt the ball deep into the opponent's territory. That's the first stop, the first step in this plan to win. And if Wisconsin isn't able to do that, if they're only punting to midfield, now Ohio State is winning that field position battle, and this is going to be a field position battle game. And if your guy's only putting the ball, 34 yards down the field, that's a losing proposition because Ohio State has the best punter in the nation and some of the best gunners. And if Ohio State wins the special teams aspect of this game, I don't know that Wisconsin can win, because I think with talent being on Ohio State's side, Wisconsin needs to do something else to win. They need to, be it turnovers, special teams could be one of those areas where they can even things out. And with the message there from Liz with their kicking issues, that's not great news.
And if they do well in special teams, we're going to all go back to 2010 when David Gilreath returned that opening kickoff when Ohio State was number 1. And, yeah, they missed a very obvious hold on there. But it all went downhill from there. Ohio State spotted the Badgers 21 points and never really was able to climb out of the hole completely.
So
Kevin,
is that
the game where the teams had no bands? Which year was we're at Wisconsin, and the Wisconsin band had been suspended for hazing. And Ohio State didn't travel its band to Wisconsin for whatever reason that year.
12.
So it was all click effects, and they're playing Where the Streets Have No Name, the great U2, I want to run, at the beginning.
That's pretty good.
And,
I think you're on key.
Popped off. This is the game where the teams have no bands.
Yeah,
but we still had jump around.
We did.
Jump around.
And then the press box always feels like it's going to come down, and we're all going to plummet to a grisly death.
That is tremendous. That is tremendous. I was racking my brain as we were talking about Wisconsin quarterbacks because I could not believe I could picture the guy. I've seen him play a zillion games, but again, nameless, faceless, as you guys mentioned. And I knew that I had the name. It was Joel Stave. I couldn't think of, and I'm embarrassed that I had to go to the internet because I'm about 20,
the one we forgot.
About 20, I started rattling names off.
Stave.
And then, of course, the classic Wisconsin quarterback.
They're all the same guy. Yeah, I think he's in his 15th year. He's all the same guy.
Well, when you have Jim Sorge, John Stocco, and Joel Stave, I mean, they're.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't come up with it. I hate when I can't come up with somebody's name, especially a guy that I've seen play about 52 games and seen throw about 14 passes a game. And then, of course, there was that one guy who's a classic Wisconsin quarterback, just in the mold of the rest of that Russell Wilson guy. He was pretty much like the rest of them, I think.
Yep.
And Ohio State, in one of their worst years, beat them somehow, some way. That was crazy. I don't know. Wisconsin did win the Big Ten championship, I think, back-to-back years for Burt Beelzebub. They're in 2011 and 2012, and they shared it the last year before the championship. It was Ohio State, Michigan State, and Wisconsin shared the championship, and then in 2011 became the championship game. They beat Michigan State in the first one, and then Ohio State was ineligible in the second one, so they got to go in Ohio State's place, and they hung a robust 70 on Nebraska, who was favored. And that was some crazy stuff back then. They won 3 in a row, and 2 of them the championship game.
So I enjoy weird records and stats. Can anyone tell me what that Wisconsin's record, what their record was, that 2012 team that won the Big Ten championship because Ohio State was ineligible, what their final record was?
It wasn't good.
Were they 7-5 in regular season?
They went 8-6. Yes, because they won the Big Ten championship game. They lost the Rose Bowl. They went 8-6.
They got to go to the Rose Bowl.
That's what you get for having leaders and legends.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the result of it.
They got to go to the Rose Bowl. Oh my gosh.
All right. Yes, Wisconsin, Ohio State. By the look at the scores in the live chat, there's probably been about 15 to 20 posts. No one's giving Wisconsin eight. The closest I've seen is 34-24. I've seen all sorts of just blowout scores. The Ohio State faithful are very confident.
Well, going back to like the Michigan State scores and the Northwestern scores, maybe everybody kind of undersold themselves in those, and now they're feeling their oats, and they're finally able to breathe and put their true selves out there and just go with blowouts because at this point you're 8 games in, it's time to buy in.
Do we know anything about Baron Browning's status? He's being asked about.
Day said after the last game he should be good to go, and then I think he said on Tuesday that he's still working his way back, and didn't say he was out. Basically,
if I had to guess, I mean, if they're going to try and put him out there, but obviously you don't want to bring in somebody who's on the wrong side of 70%. I mean, so I would expect to see him, but that's more based on just knowing Baron than knowing what's really going on with Baron. But about the scores too, everybody needs to remember that this has been a one-score series going back through the 2011 game, except for the 2014 59-0 shellacking. I mean, you have 6-7, 59, 7-7, and 4. So I mean, it has been a close series. And when I started looking to put my score together, I thought about that for half a second, and then I discarded it.
I looked at all of that data and I said, no, they blow them out.
Okay. I think I'm still taking the 14, which reminds me, everyone, there you go. You get my week 9 predictions by grabbing the link in the description section below next to Voice of College Football Community. 14-7 against the spread last week. 14-7 against the spread. I'm a glutton for punishment. I pick all the top 25 games. That does not help my percentage, but I just can't help myself. So I pick all the top 25 games, 14-7 against the spread, 58% for the season. So if you do the math on a $100 play, you win 91. If you win, you lose 100. If you lose, 100 times 7, 14 times 91, you're doing pretty well.
That's way too much math, man. You lost me there. Can you go over that a little slower?
You're going to net about $600, Tony.
Okay.
If you listen to me. At least
I just need the bottom line.
You would have listened to me.
Thank you. Wow. Yes. Now you sound like my wife.
Well, I need a loan because I can't afford to make $25 $100 bets.
Well, that's why you pace yourself. You play the noon games and then you wait for that money to cash in and you get to on down the line. That's what you do right there. We talk Ohio State football each and every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time with these guys. They're just the best. That's all there is to it. I can't imagine there being better Ohio State football talk, except for, of course, in their respective podcasts. Tony, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find my podcast, Buckeye Weekly Podcast, about 3 times a week now at all of your local providers. Buckeye Weekly Podcast. Me and Tom Moore talking, mainly recapping all of the Tuesday and Thursday interview stuff, and then our post-game podcast every week.
Kevin?
I do the Buckeye Instant Access podcast, and right now it's really just a post-game podcast, and as breaking news happens, but we're always looking at expanding it, and we can be found on all the major outlets: SoundCloud, Stitcher, Apple, the Apple Store, whatever the hell that's called. I mean, all those places. The internet.
Oh, podcast on the internet now.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, besides your writing, we've got you to ourselves right here.
Yeah, I mean, I do occasionally the Bucknuts Morning 5 on our site and Facebook Live after almost every game with Patrick Murphy. About an hour or so after the game, we go on the Bucknuts Facebook site and give really in the middle of the night last week against Northwestern, we talked for about 20 minutes. It's not the full 60 or 90 minutes that our friends from the Ozone, Tony Gerdeman and Tom Orr were over there in the next booth over. They had already been going for 20 minutes. We did ours for about 20 minutes, and they were still going. I'm like, what are they talking about? The final score was 52-3. What in goodness sakes are they still talking about 45 minutes later? But apparently, as Patrick Murphy, my cohort, said, oh, they go for an hour. It's no problem. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What was there to discuss?
We were talking about noon.
Yeah, there you go.
He sucks.
He and Jack Cohn suck. We've got Todd B in the live chat who's asking about Jahmyr Gibbs, running back out of Dalton, Georgia, 21st rated running back according to the 247 Sports Composite. Do we have any information on him in regards to his upcoming selection?
I think he's a Georgia Tech commitment, kind of soft at this point because he's listening around. And I know Alabama came out of the woodwork here recently and offered him a scholarship. So he's from Georgia. He's going to have his decision cut out for him whether he wants to stay home and be a part of a turnaround at Georgia Tech or go and play for a national championship at Ohio State or Alabama or somewhere else. I think that's going to be a tough decision for that young man. And I know Ohio State is really they've struck out on their first 7 or 8 running back targets, and now they're on the aftermarket looking at guys who are committed elsewhere to try and steal. They're like the devil going down to Georgia here, trying to steal a soul at the 11th hour because they're running out of time. And really that does typify it. In the one position they haven't recruited for 2020 is the running back position. Now, having said that, they've got Master Teague, they've got Crowley, they've got Steele Chambers, and I believe they have a running back committed for 2021, but they do have a glaring hole because obviously Dobbins is gone after this season. Only 3 scholarship running backs currently on the team. Well, I guess McCall, if you want to count him, maybe back next year too, but he has hardly ever lined up in the backfield this year. So I don't know. Gibbs, they're making a run at him. Alabama's making a run at him. He's got a lot to think about.
Shout out to Charlie Daniels and the boys there from Steve.
Yeah.
All right. We also have a big game in the Big Ten. When you look at tradition, when you look at rivalry, when you look at Notre Dame's season forecast and what they're trying to accomplish, but when it comes to the maize and blue, is it really a big game? Notre Dame, Michigan. You get my attention when you say those 2 names in the same sentence because what it means, again, when it comes to tradition. But Michigan, having lost 2 games in the Big Ten, as valiantly as they fought, and I thought they played really well, and I gave them a lot of credit and still do for fighting back from 21-0 when they could have caved in and collapsed amidst all the whiteout and everything going on around them and the narrative that they had to wait on their back going into the game and then getting down 21-0, falling to Penn State 28-21 when Ronnie Bell couldn't squeeze the football in the end zone in the final minute. But now they're playing Notre Dame, where this was projected to have college football playoff implications on both sides. Michigan having lost 2. It's not a Big Ten game. Does it really mean much? How much are they going to be motivated, Tony?
Well, I think they're both going to be very motivated. This is one of the best rivalries in college football. It's one of my favorites. It doesn't matter if they're both going to be 8-4 after the season or not. But I think this is a game that both teams need. I think for Michigan, it's just to prove to themselves that they're on the right track and they're not in some type of shambles that the rest of the nation is trying to put them in. And if they lose this, then maybe the rest of the nation is correct. I believe they were a 1-point favorite that I saw from today. I like them in this game because I don't really like Notre Dame. So that's where I am. I like Michigan's defense is getting better. I'm not a big Notre Dame offensive guy. So I think maybe the Michigan defense can do well. I don't know if Michigan can run the ball really on anybody unless Shea Patterson is running it as well. That does help them. But then, if he can avoid mistakes, I think they win. That's a big if because, he likes to fumble. He'll throw some bad passes, some odd passes. And so, that's kind of a leap of faith. But I'm siding with Michigan maybe by 3 or 4 in this one. And it helps to propel Michigan on into the rest of the season. And then it gets Notre Dame completely out of the picture, which I think the rest of the nation needs as well.
Right. I mean, if Notre Dame doesn't win this game, they have nobody left on their schedule. They play like Huey, Dewey, and Louie the rest of the way. I mean, they have nothing. So this means everything. Not only does Notre Dame need it, I think they need to win convincingly.
Mm-hmm.
With Michigan, I mean, if they would have not fought back, I mean, they easily could have, you could stuck a fork in them at that point. But they did valiantly come back to the point and came very close to forcing overtime and didn't get it. I just do not like the Michigan offense. I just don't know what they're going to be able to do, but the Notre Dame offense is an even bigger enigma. So, I mean, I guess, short of, we can't have a tie. So, I mean, I think Michigan will eke one out in a game that will probably send me to Netflix 2 or 3 times, midway through, just because it's just hurting my eyes.
Go watch El Camino.
I already have in Fat Todd.
Notre Dame, I think, is better than anybody's given them credit for. They're 5-1, lost the one game at Georgia. Really, they were dominating USC and kind of fell asleep at the wheel. And of course, that was a primetime game. Ohio State may have been in an open week that week, a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think anybody in the country was watching that because I think that was the same time as LSU, Florida, and another really good game. Mm-hmm. That was the third best game going, and to Notre Dame's benefit, nobody saw them collapse in the second half, and they had to recover an onside kick at the end to beat an unranked USC team, and granted, it was at South Bend. But up until then, they played really good football. I think they're better than they were last year when they were 12-0. It's strange to say because Book's a year older. I guess I would say they have the potential to be better than they were a year ago. But back to what Kevin is saying, their schedule is so bad this year, and it's not their fault. It's just the way it worked out. I mean, when Virginia is one of the ranked teams that you played, and they're no longer ranked. You played at Georgia. That's your one game. Michigan, for 100 years has been a top 10 team, and this year they're not. Granted, for the last 10 or 15 years, they've been borderline top 10. But that's like your second best opponent on your schedule. Stanford's a disaster. As Kevin said, from here on out, they play no ranked teams after Michigan, at least currently ranked teams. And I think an 11-1 Notre Dame has no chance, and I mean less than no chance to make the playoff. One, based on the bias, and it shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't be this way. Just as Clemson and Alabama should not be overstated on the basis of what they've done over the last 5 years, great as it may be. But those teams, if the season ended today, I put a big story on Bucknuts today. I got Ohio State, looking at all the criteria, record of your opponents, ranked teams that you've played, Sagarin, AP poll, coaches poll, and who's got the best combination, offense and defense in the country? It's Ohio State. Ohio State would be 1, LSU would be 2, Alabama would be 3, and Clemson would barely, and I mean barely, be number 4 over Oklahoma. And that's got nothing to do with the fact that they're the defending champions, just where they deserve to be. If people looked at things where they deserve to be, that's how it would be, in my opinion. Well, I shouldn't even say that. It's not an opinion. I laid it all out. I put it across there. You have to read it if you want. It's a free story. I've seeded the teams as of this point of the season, and so much is going to change as we go down the stretch here with Ohio State, with tough games. 4 ranked teams in the last 6 weeks for Ohio State, starting with Wisconsin, if they make the championship game. But in terms of Notre Dame and Michigan, I think about our friend Kyle Rowland, covered Michigan the last couple of years, and he said if they lost to Penn State, a conference game, it wouldn't surprise him if they had nothing left to give for Notre Dame. Honestly, they laid down the first quarter, down 21-0, and then came back and made a game of it. It was 28-21, the final score, dropped the touchdown that would have tied it and sent it to overtime, although you just wonder, would Sneaky Jim have gone for 2 on the road? had the kid caught the touchdown? Well, one of those things we'll never know, will we? You can't get a straight answer out of the guy. People asked him 20 questions on Monday. This, that, and the other. The only thing he had an in-depth answer to was about the student who had a bad comment about Bell dropping the touchdown. He spoke for over a minute about how bad that was. But if you ask him about the state of his offense, we're getting better. We're trying. It's a two-sentence answer.
Well,
I
Steve,
digress. They, for 40 minutes yesterday, gave us everything we could possibly want to know about Ohio State. And that's where the contrast lies. One is a confident leader of men. The other guy, I hate to say this, he lost whatever he had. In 1986, this guy was as brash can be. And today, he's a shell of his former self. That's all I have to say about that man. He doesn't bring it like he used to. I'll just leave it at that. But I think Michigan gives these guys a good game. Michigan could steal it, could go down the last play. Who knows? Flip a coin. Should be a great game, though. I think they're evenly matched, to be honest with you.
I was hoping this whole report of him looking to leave for the NFL would make him angry, because we need an angry Jim Harbaugh back. Because you're right, Steve. He's
watch him on the sideline.
Exactly.
If a defensive pass interference call goes against him, he's looking up at the board with that. Yep. You got to put the camera on me for 1 second, and I wish I had my glasses here. Put the camera on me for once. Can you? Okay. Am I capturing it? That stare off into space, look at the board for where was the penalty? If we've seen that once, we've seen it 30 times this year as the guys look for help from the board. Hey, they're playing football right in front of you, and the next play's coming up in 10 seconds, and you better get ready for it, because he's like a deer in the headlights. One thing goes against him, and he curls up in the fetal position. That's not the Jim Harbaugh I grew up with. Give me the old Jim Harbaugh. Give me the Jim Harbaugh who goes out there and declares we're going to beat Ohio State. I haven't seen that Jim Harbaugh yet. I
want to see just even the Pete Carroll, what's your deal, Jim Harbaugh?
Yes.
From the early days at Stanford. Just bring it back. Regarding going for 2, I think they would have gone for 2, but Shea Patterson would have missed the pass. So they still would have lost. So the drop isn't that big of a deal. But yeah, we need some attitude back from Jim Harbaugh, and maybe that happens if they beat Ohio State this year, and then I guess it's be careful what you ask for.
I'm way too passionate about wanting this Jim Harbaugh and that Jim Harbaugh. I'm perfectly fine with the current Jim Harbaugh.
We're getting the Jim Harbaugh we deserve.
Because I know that I can write my story at halftime, and if we're up Ann Arbor, I can stop in Bowling Green and go have wings at Frickers and a couple of beers. So,
just a walk around the newly improved concourse.
That's there right now is perfectly fine if from an Ohio State standpoint.
He's doing great.
Good stuff, boys. Let's wrap it up with some predictions. This one is supposed to be a close one, or was supposed to be a close one, but that Illinois game has certainly skewed the minds and hearts of many out there that are predicting all sorts of blowout scores, and Vegas has it at 14.5. So, Kevin, why don't we start with you?
As I said, I went to Winsipedia.com, which is one of my favorite websites. I got to see all the scores from the series. All these reasons telling me why, this game should be really close, with 2014 being the anomaly. I just think that this Wisconsin team is one-dimensional on both sides of the ball. They may be good at stopping the run. They may be good at running the ball. I am not ready to anoint Jack Cohn as anything other than just a game manager. I think we saw what happened when the chips were really on the table. Some of the yips from 2017 started to come back. Or for 2018 started to come back. I like it to be a close game at first, but Ohio State will find that cheat code in the second quarter to put up some points. I like Ohio State to win this one 38-17.
Tony.
That's my score, man.
Oh.
Yes, I was going to say 38-17, but now I cannot. Let's go 34-17 because the rain's going to limit some of the scoring. Kevin doesn't know that, obviously. The score he has is way too high. So I'm thinking like 34-13. But holding Wisconsin to 2 touchdowns, under 2 touchdowns, I don't feel great about that. But I also don't like 34-17. So for reasons of my own undoing, I'm going to say 34-13. And really, this is I've done the 34 points for Ohio State before, and it's doesn't feel like it's enough with this offense because 42 and 41 it feels like they could put that up on anybody. And now you're facing a Wisconsin defense that's good, but Illinois had some success against them. Even when I was watching Brandon Peters run the ball on them a little bit, and it's like, if Brandon Peters is doing that, Justin Fields, he might be doing that too. But yeah, I'll go with 34-13 because Kevin's a jerk.
Hobby.
I don't know what the over-under is. Somebody was asking there if somebody wanted to look that up, one of the people who posted, but I know the line's right around 14 points. We were there in the parking lot outside Northwestern after the game, and I said originally I thought 31-10. Then I thought after the Illinois result, well, we didn't know that at the time, I guess. I said 31-17, a 14-point margin, but I'm not the kind of person that when the line's 14, I'm not going to pick it right on the line because that doesn't do me or anybody any good. I got to give you a side, and I was going to say 34-17 in that range. It could be 37-20. I don't know. I kind of like what Tony is saying because let's go back to the Michigan State game. Michigan State came in with a very good, at least on paper, defense. And we don't know what's legit. As we laid out there, Wisconsin's number one ranked defense, is it legitimate or is it built on a house of cards? We don't know. And we're going to find out starting at 12 o'clock on Saturday. We're going to find out if they can match Ohio State play for play over a 70-play game or whatever it takes. I kind of like what he said. In that first quarter against Michigan State, it was 16 plays for 16 yards. And everybody's sitting there looking at each other like, is this for real? My goodness, was the first 5 weeks all for naught? What was this? And then they went for 300 yards almost in the second quarter alone, and it was 27-10 at the half. And the game, for all effects and purposes, after Michigan State missed a chip shot to start the second half, it's over. Game over light is flashing. We just didn't know it yet. So does Ohio State pull away in the second half? That's the big question here. And the game's in Ohio Stadium, and, man, it's going to be rocking. I can tell you that. People have been looking forward to this, regardless of that Illinois result. Oh, man, I'm tricking myself into this now, like 38-17 or whatever, but it's going to be more than the line of 14. Let's just say that. I'm going to pick a score, probably 34-17, something like that, and they're going to have to hustle to get to 17, in my opinion. I just think this defense is legitimate, and Justin Fields is the difference. The teams are mirror images of one another. Great offensive lines, great running backs, great defenses. But one is a great quarterback, the other one's a very good quarterback, and I think that's where the difference, though they don't play against each other, will never be on the field at the same time. That's the edge for Ohio State. Oh, and 107,000 people too on a I was going to say a beautiful sunny day, but apparently a 70% chance of rain on Saturday. So we'll see.
The elite speed and athleticism on the Ohio State side.
I forgot about that.
Permeates every position as opposed
Better
to
depth.
Wisconsin. There's a few guys out there that can hang with Ohio State from that standpoint. So I go with Tony in regards to, is the Wisconsin defense for real? I believe it's for real. What does that mean? I believe it's the typical Wisconsin defense that's for real. That the rankings may tell us it's a top 5 defense, but in actuality, it's more like a top 15 defense.
Right.
It's not Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State when it comes to athleticism and NFL ability across.
Good heavens, no.
They're very good. They're sound. They will bring it. They will lick their wounds from last week and certainly come out with fire and passion to win this game and prove themselves. And, man, they're just one of those programs and one of those teams that I don't sell short, but their talent sells them somewhat short. And this Ohio State team is really good. So is the defense legitimate for Wisconsin? Yes, but I like what Tony had to say in regards to this Ohio State offense is that legit that they're scoring 35 to 40 points against anybody and will against Wisconsin. My pick, of course, is down in the description section below. Grab the link. Voice of College Football Community, 14-7 against the spread. Could win $632.48, Tony. That's what it was last week.
Not bad. I know people who have done better than that.
Tony's selling me out on my own show. My goodness. It's awful.
No, that's more of an inside joke between the three of us, but that's I 14-7 is incredible, and more power to you, and congratulations.
Great.
We can't
stuff.
out the fact that somebody hit a 6-teamer when we were in Council Bluffs, Iowa. We were not supposed to mention that, or is the IRS not supposed to know about that?
You three? Between one of you three?
Gambling
Wasn't me.
Bushwood, and I never slice.
We all like Council Bluffs.
Can we go to Nebraska every year?
Yes.
Exactly. Can we move the University of Iowa to Council Bluffs?
You know, back in the old days, the Big Ten, like Indiana, would play at Ohio State every year just because, for some reason, whoever their Gene Smith was and the guy who fired Knight, the Indiana AD, they knew that there was more money to be made if they played that game in Columbus every year. Honest to God, for years they played one of those rivalries every year in Columbus. I vote we go to Nebraska every year. God, it's a great place to watch a game.
Cheryl, bless your heart. You're in the live chat, not just for this show, but for all the shows, and I appreciate that very much. And Cheryl's looking for a free play on the Ohio State-Wisconsin spread. Cheryl, I wouldn't do that to you. Don't put that kind of pressure on me. So I'm not going to let you know. Just one play, go for gold, everything on the line. No, I can't do it. Sorry.
The over-under is 50, by the way.
The over-under is 50. So Vegas is looking for a game at 35, 15, whatever that comes to, 30, 36, 14, something like that. 30. And no, not 36, 14. 30, they're 33, 17. That's at 16. So 32-18 Buckeyes. That's the Vegas line. That's what they're telling us, I guess, at 14 points and 50 for the over-under. All right, for Tony Gerdeman from the Ozone, Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts, and of course, Buckeye Grove's Kevin Noon. This is Ohio State football talk each and every Wednesday night. We will see you back here at 9 o'clock Eastern time next Wednesday. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. See you guys.
All right.